Hey guys, it's me GamerZ YouTube channel. Sorry for not uploading for a while, but don't worry, here I am. Today I will be talking about the best first-person shooter games for low-end PCs. Please like and subscribe cause this video took me 2 hours to create, so I would really appreciate if you hit that like button and subscribe. So let's go. Metro Last Light is a post-apocalyptic themed, first-person shooter video game with stealth and survival horror elements. It was developed by Ukrainian studio 4A Games and published by Deep Silver for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in May 2013. A sequel to the video game Metro 2033, its story follows Artyom, a young soldier living in the Moscow metro after a devastating nuclear war. Tasked with finding the mysterious Dark Ones, Artyom must venture to different parts of the metro system, and the surface filled with radiated gases, and fight against different factions and mutated monsters. The game improves on various gameplay mechanics of 2033, and introduces elements such as weapon customization. Developed by a team of about 80 people, Last Light is a direct sequel to 2033, with franchise creator Dmitry Glukhovsky writing the game's dialogue and main story outline. Multiplayer modes were planned but were eventually scrapped in order to focus on single player, which the developer. Mafia 2 is a 2010 action-adventure game developed by 2K Czech and published by 2K Games. It was released in August 2010 for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. A version consisting of previous downloadable content, entitled Mafia 2, Director's Cut, was released by Feral Interactive in December 2011. 3. The game is a sequel to 2002's Mafia 4 and the second installment in the Mafia series. Set within the fictional city of Empire Bay, loosely based on New York City, with several aspects of Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston, and Detroit. During the 1940s and 1950s, the story follows Sicilian-American mobster and war veteran Vito Scaletta, who becomes involved in a power struggle among the city's mafia crime families while attempting to pay back his father's debts and secure a better lifestyle. The game is played from a third-person perspective and its world is navigated on foot or by vehicle. The player character's criminal activities may Call of Duty Black Ops 2 is a 2012 first-person shooter developed by Treyarch and published by Activision. It was released for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3, and the Xbox 360 on November 12, 2012, and for the Wii U on November 18 in North America and November 30 in PAL regions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Black Ops 2 is the 9th game in the Call of Duty franchise of video games, a sequel to the 2010 game Call of Duty, Black Ops and the first Call of Duty game for the Wii U. A corresponding game for the PlayStation Vita, Call of Duty, Black Ops, Declassified, was developed by Instigate Games and also released on November 13. The game's campaign follows up the story of Black Ops and is set in the late 1980s and 2025. In the 1980s, the player switches control between Alex Mason and Frank Woods, two of the protagonists from Black Ops, while in 2025, the player assumes control of Mason's son, David, codenamed Section. Both time periods involve the characters pursuing Raúl Menéndez, a Nicaraguan cartel leader, who is responsible for kidnapping Woods in the 80s and later sparking a second Cold War in 2025. The campaign features non-linear gameplay and has multiple endings. Development for the game began soon after the release of Black Ops, with Activision promising that the follow-up would bring meaningful innovation to the Call of Duty franchise. Black Ops 2 is the first game in the series to feature futuristic warfare technology and the first to present branching storylines driven by player choice as well as selecting weapons before starting story mode missions. It also offers a 3D display option. The game was officially revealed on May 1, 2012, following a set of leaked information released during Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. Blacklist is an action-adventure stealth video game developed by Ubisoft Toronto and published by Ubisoft. The seventh installment of the Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell series, it is the sequel of Splinter Cell, Conviction. The game was released worldwide for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3, Wii U, and Xbox 360 in August 2013. In the game, players control Sam Fisher, a spymaster working for the Fourth Echelon, in a mission to stop the Engineers, a group of terrorists which is trying to coerce the United States into recalling all of its troops stationed abroad. Blacklist's gameplay is similar to its predecessors, with players tasked with completing objectives and defeating enemies. Blacklist marks the return of the asymmetrical multiplayer mode Spies vs. Mercs, which was introduced in Pandora Tomorrow. It is the first title developed by Ubisoft Toronto, a studio founded by Ubisoft in 2009. The game was directed by Maxime Belland, who had worked on Conviction, and produced by Jade Raymond. The game endeavors to combine elements of its predecessors, including the action focus of Conviction and the stealth focus of the older games. To prepare for this game, Belland studied reviews and feature lists of the latter. Blacklist is the first Splinter Cell game starring Eric Johnson as Sam Fisher, since series veteran Michael Ironside was unable to reprise his role after being diagnosed with cancer. The later announced Wii U version was developed by Ubisoft Shanghai, which also developed the game's multiplayer. Blacklist's pre-release reception was generally positive, despite criticism of its new voice actor. The game received generally positive reviews when it was released, with praise for its level design, story, gameplay, combat, soundtrack, and multiplayer mode. However, criticism was directed at its dated graphics, Far Cry 3 is a 2012 first-person shooter developed by Ubisoft Montreal and published by Ubisoft. It is the third main installment in the Far Cry series. The game takes place on the fictional Rook Islands, a tropical archipelago which can be freely explored by players. Gameplay focuses on combat and exploration. Players can use a variety of weapons to defeat human enemies and hostile wildlife, and the game features elements found in role-playing games such as skill trees and experience. After a vacation goes awry, protagonist Jason Brody must save his friends, who have been kidnapped by pirates, and escape from the island and its unhinged inhabitants. Ubisoft Montreal collaborated with Ubisoft's global development team, including Massive Entertainment, Ubisoft Shanghai, Ubisoft Bucharest, Ubisoft Reflections, and Red Storm Entertainment. The game's development was partially restarted in 2010 after the departure of several key creative staff. The team evaluated the feedback for Far Cry 2 and identified areas that needed to be improved or removed. The team spent considerable time designing the island, which they described as the second most important character in the game. Inspirations were taken from films and TV shows such as Apocalypse Now and Lost, as well as video games The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim and Red Dead Redemption. Michael Mondo was hired to portray Vaz, an antagonist the team compared to Darth Vader. The game was announced in June 2011 and Ubisoft promoted the game with various companion apps, web series, and crossover. It was released for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in November 2012. The game received critical acclaim upon release, with praise directed at its characters, world design, progression, and gameplay, though its narrative and multiplayer modes received criticism. Despite weak pre-order sales, nearly 10 million copies of the game were sold. It was nominated for multiple year-end accolades including Game of the Year and Best Shooter awards by several gaming publications. Ubisoft supported the game with downloadable content and released Far Cry 3, Blood Dragon, the game's standalone expansion, in 2013. A successor, Far Cry 4 was released in November 2014. The game was re-released for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in June 2018. Crysis 2 is a first-person shooter video game developed by Crytek, published by Electronic Arts and released in North America, Australia, and Europe in March 2011 for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. Officially announced on June 1, 2009, the game is the second main installment of the Crysis series, and a sequel to the 2007 video game Crysis, and its expansion Crysis Warhead. 1. The story was written by Richard Morgan II while Peter Watts was consulted and wrote a novel adaptation of the game. 3. It was the first game to showcase the CryEngine 3 game engine and the first game using the engine to be released on consoles. A sequel, Crysis 3, was released in 2013. Crysis 2 is a first-person shooter. The player assumes the role of a Force Recon Marine called Alcatraz. Similar to its predecessor, it provides freedom to customize weaponry and abilities. Crytek wanted to avoid making another game set in a true jungle environment, as were Far Cry and Crysis. New York City has been dubbed an urban jungle. The urban atmosphere offers new options with relation to progressing and planning attacks. Players are able to navigate between floors and buildings, as well as a destroyed cityscape. Zombie Army Trilogy is a third-person tactical shooter stealth video game developed and published by Rebellion Developments. It is a spin-off to the Sniper Elite series, released on March 6, 2015 for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. 1. A port for the Nintendo Switch was released on March 31, 2020 in North America and Europe, and in Japan on May 28, 2020. 2-3 The game takes place in an alternative version of the final days of World War II, with the German army close to defeat. Adolf Hitler deploys a last resort plan to raise the fallen as zombies through occult rituals and turn them against Allied forces, thus causing Germany to become overrun with the undead. The trilogy includes a remastered version of the original Nazi Zombie Army and its sequel, which were both released in 2013 as standalone downloadable content for Sniper Elite V2, and a previously unreleased third installment in the series.